Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I am Worship Associate Maureen Daley, and I am joined by Worship Associate Xina Kingshill. Our minister, the Reverend Dana Warsnop, is out of the pulpit today, and we are pleased to welcome Minister Lorrie Brown. Let me tell you just a bit about Minister Brown and a few of her many accomplishments. Raised here in Ventura at Olivet Baptist Church, her faith has played a significant role in her life. She has served on the Ventura City Council, where her belief in applied moral leadership aided her in successfully spearheading progressive policy initiatives to pass resolutions declaring racism a public health issue, denouncing police brutality, and implementing the Progress Initiative aimed at addressing lack of community engagement on boards and commissions, affordable housing, and economic development. Minister Brown has received the Pioneer Award from the local NAACP and the Outstanding Alumni of the Year Award from California Lutheran University. She is a minister, a professor, and a mother of 3 children, 2 on earth and 1 in heaven. Lorrie is a classically trained first soprano, and yes, we will have the privilege of hearing her voice today. With all of this and so much more, we are happy to have her with us this morning. We preface our service by acknowledging our building rests on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Chumash peoples. Let us pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that cries out for justice and for responsible stewardship. In so remembering, may we find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. We have some announcements today. First, we thank the people seated in the section nearest the open windows for keeping this section for individuals who are more comfortable being among other masked worshipers. Also, the second of 2 new to UU classes will be held next Sunday, March 30th, after services at 11:30 a.m. This is an introductory class where you will learn more about the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura, have a tour of the church, meet others who are new to the church, and visit with members who can answer any of your questions. Our annual pledge drive is in full swing and coming to its end. Please turn in your pledge card by the end of the month if you haven't already done so. Also, today after church at 11:30, right here in the sanctuary, the Red Cross will be presenting a disaster preparedness seminar. You will learn the importance of creating and maintaining a to-go bag, key steps to prepare your home and family for emergencies, and receive educational materials to help guide your disaster plan. And today at 3 p.m. in Berg Hall, there will be a meeting of volunteers for the Climate Justice Revival. Our church is the host of this event on Saturday, April 12th at 12:30 p.m. Also, auction items from the Ventura Homeless Prevention Fundraiser will be in Berg Hall. They are still out near the coffee in our community room, and you can bid on them using the QR codes. Sue Brinkmeyer will be in the area to help. Let me remind you to refer to the announcements in the weekly email message UUCV this week for current announcements. Now, enter with me into sacred space. Bring with you what is yours: a burdened heart, a joyous song, a wearied spirit, a seeking mind. Bring the gift of yourself to the altar. It is an honorable gift. Let us enter sacred space.
Another beautiful day here in Ventura. I am Worship Associate Xina Kingshill. We invite those of you who are Zooming or streaming into this service to light a candle or a chalice at home as Maureen lights the chalice of our free faith here in the sanctuary. Our call to worship this morning comes from Marta Valentin. We pause this morning from the chaos of the world to reclaim the beauty within these walls that carry us through our week. We lift this community onto our shoulders with pride and grace-filled expectations for our children and our children's children. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everyone. You probably already know. Hi, I'm Zach, filling in for Carolyn. I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as you are able, as we sing number 299, Make Channels for the Streams of Love. Channels for the streams of love where they may broadly run, and love as overflowing streams to fill them everyone. But if at any time we cease such channels to provide, very founts of love for us will soon be parched and dried. For we must share if we would keep this gift all else above. We cease to give, we cease to have, such is the law of love. Thank you. You can be seated.
I'd like to invite all of our youngsters and those of you young at heart to come forward for the time for the child in all of us. Come on up. It's going to be fun today, I promise you.
Hello. How are you guys doing today? I'm Lorrie. I know I have had times when I have felt like I was not good enough. I wonder if you felt that way too. Like you were expected to be taller, or maybe have longer hair, or be a grown-up already. But you are very big. And you're enough. But do you sometimes feel that someone might be smarter or better or faster at sports or something like that? But guess what? It's okay, because you're young and you will become like a grown-up one day, and you have plenty of time to get better and be really good. Even if you start out not being that good, you just practice a lot and you can get really good. Even
I have Transformer toys.
Oh, that's great.
And dinosaur car track.
That's great. Even sometimes adults get tired of doing things that force them to conform to this world. And life does not always... Oh. Wait a second. And life does not always give us room to figure everything out. But guess what? The Creator wants you to be just who He created you to be. And that's enough. So let us watch a video about what it means to be enough.
Today we're going to be reading I Am Enough. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough. Like the sun, I'm here to shine. Like the voice, I'm here to sing. Like the bird, I'm here to fly and soar high over everything. Like the trees, I'm here to grow. Like the mountains, here to stand. Like time, I'm here to be and be everything I can. Like the champ, I'm here to fight. Like the heart, I'm here to love. Like a ladder, here to climb. And like the air, to rise above. Like the wind, I'm here to push. Like a rope, I'm here to pull. Like the rain, I'm here to pour and drip and fall until I'm full. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough. Like the moon, I'm here to dream. Like the student, I'm here to learn. Like the water, here to swell. Like the fire, here to burn. Like the winner, I'm here to win. And if I don't, get up again. I know that I may sometimes cry, but even then, I'm here to try. I'm not meant to be like you. You're not meant to be like me. Sometimes we will get along, other times we will disagree. I know that we don't look the same. Our skin, our eyes, our hair, our frame. But that does not dictate our worth. We both have places here on earth. And in the end, we are right here. To live a life of love, not fear. To help each other when it's tough. To say together, I am enough. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough.
I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough. I'm enough even when I don't see it. I'm enough even when I don't feel it. I'm enough when life gets tough and it feels kinda rough. It's okay, I'm enough.
Everybody say, when life gets rough, and things are tough, put your hands in the air and say, I'm enough. Thank you.
Okay, and let's sing our children out by forming our bridge of love. And those of you who are new, just follow along, and the kids love this.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
Good morning. I'm Gary Zinik, and this is my short version testimonial of how I became a UU and why I love this church. I was born and raised in a Jewish family in Salt Lake City, Utah in 1954. I was bar mitzvahed at age 13 and confirmed at age 16. I left Salt Lake to go to college where I studied psychology and comparative religion. During my college years, Judaism became increasingly obsolete for me. I love Jewish food and celebrating the holidays of Hanukkah and Passover in the home, but I became increasingly bored and impatient during the worship services in the synagogue. Hebrew prayers, which can drone on ad nauseum, became irritating. It didn't help when I read the English translation of these prayers, which was usually to the tune of bless the Lord, praise the Lord, God is great, God is good, bless the Lord, praise the Lord, and so on and so on and so on. I was raised a good Jewish boy, but unbeknownst to me, I was on the slippery slope of atheism. I prayed and read books and tried mightily to believe in the Jewish superhero God, but by my mid-20s, I realized I was a humanist square peg and couldn't force myself into a theist round hole. At that time, I was in graduate school at UCSB, where I serendipitously met the minister of the Santa Barbara Unitarian Church. He invited me to a potluck supper at his home, where I ate good food and met some very cool UU people. The Unitarian Church was an easy walk from my little apartment, so off I went the next Sunday morning. What I found blew my mind and changed my life forever. For one thing, the service was all in English. Now, this was a church beyond belief, and I mean that literally. There was no dogma or doctrine that you had to believe to be a UU. In fact, more important than beliefs are values in this church, like inclusivity and democracy and treating everyone with dignity and respect. The people had the power, not the minister or those in higher authority. Everyone had a seat at the table and everyone was welcome in this church. That drew me right in. What's more, since the UU faith draws inspiration from the Judeo-Christian tradition, I didn't have to completely disavow my Jewish heritage. They even had Hanukkah parties and Passover seders, complete with latkes and matzo ball soup. I could be an atheist, humanist, UU Jew. What more could I ask? I joined the Santa Barbara Church, and the rest is history. I moved to Ventura with my family and joined UUCV in 2000. I've been a UU for 45 years. You are my people, and this is my spiritual home. I've had so many wonderful experiences in this church. One of the most important has been my men's support group, which I've been a member of for 20 years. We call ourselves Los Simpaticos, and I love my band of brothers. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, I hope you find what you're looking for. I did. I found it right here at UUCV. Thank you.
Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to an organization in the larger community or funds that help people in our church. Those at home have two ways to give: through the link posted in the chat or by texting from your phone the number on the screen. Folks who are present in the sanctuary can text to give, or you can still write a check or give cash, then drop it in the box at the back of the sanctuary after the service. Our offering today goes to MyCop, Mixteco Indigena Community Organizing Project. MyCop was founded in 2001 as a result of observing the hardships faced by the growing indigenous farm worker population in Oxnard. MyCop supports, organizes, and empowers the indigenous migrant communities in California's Central Coast. They meet these goals through advocating for fair employment practices for farm workers and building the capacity and leadership skills of farm workers to identify, report, and resolve employment-based abuses such as discrimination, unpaid overtime, wage theft, on-the-job sexual harassment, and employer retaliation for demanding fairness in the workplace. MyCop has developed a wide variety of programs that serve the unique needs of this community. The Health Advocacy Program addresses the gap separating Ventura County's indigenous immigrant population from the medical systems in our county. They provide outreach and education about low-cost or free programs available for immigrants, regardless of immigration status. MyCop addresses the needs of the children and youth in this population through outstations at 6 elementary schools in Oxnard, El Rio, and Port Hueneme. These outstations provide case management, referrals, language interpretation, and parenting classes. They also connect families with children 0 to 25 years old that have intellectual and developmental disabilities with needed services. One of the more important programs MyCop offers during these troubling times is free to very low cost immigration legal advice and representation. MyCop services are provided in Mixteco, Spanish, and English. Thank you for giving generously, as you always do.
We are very grateful for the generosity of this congregation. This generosity helps us weave the tapestry of love that we call community. Thank you. Now is the time in our service when we hold up the great joys and sorrows that grace our lives. We place stones in water for both the celebrations and sorrows in our hearts, making ripples that are felt throughout our community. You can submit a joy or sorrow for sharing via a link on the website, uuventura.org, or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. Those received by 8 o'clock on Saturday will be shared that Sunday. Now, because the weather has been so beautiful, everybody's just been reveling in that, and so we just have a group joy today of beautiful weather. I invite you now to speak into the gathered community or write into the Zoom chat the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those in need of the loving embrace of this beloved community. Maureen will now place one stone in the water, representing all the joys and sorrows yet unspoken in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
please remain seated while we join each other in singing number 325, Love Makes a Bridge. Love makes a bridge from heart to heart and hand to hand. Love finds a way when laws are blind and freedom banned. Love breaks the walls of language, gender, class, and age. Love gives us wings to slip the bars of every cage. Love lifts the hopes and force and fear have beaten down. Love breaks the chains and gives us strength to stand our ground. Love makes a bridge that winds may shake yet not destroy. Love carries faith through life and death to endless joy.
Good morning. I'm just going to do a reading before the meditation about a gentleman named Khalil Gibran, a Lebanese American poet, philosopher. Well, he didn't like to be called a philosopher, but mainly a visual artist, known as the third best poet of all time among William Shakespeare and Lao Tzu, which I was not even aware. Focusing on love, suffering, and solitude, he is remembered for his most famous work, The Prophet. It was a book of counterculture. It was considered spiritual, influenced by both Eastern and Western literary traditions, but not tied to any one religion, and spoke about freedom and love, and that reminded me of the UU Church. It has never been out of print, his book. He believed in the fundamental unity of religions. I thought his literary philosophy fit, and he was inspired by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche and the New King James Bible, among others. He was raised by a single mother he loved dearly, and he briefly lived in the poor south side of Boston. His artistic ability was discovered at 15, and he was introduced to the art world. He tragically lost his mother and some siblings while in America, and later returned to Lebanon and was active in organizing support for their liberation. But I introduced him because I just wanted to introduce him before I expressed his quote, which says, and he has thousands of quotes and essays and stories, but just this one that has to do with the homily later says, God said, love your enemy. So I obeyed, and I loved myself. So just think of those things during your meditation, because he also had a few words about this carpenter, otherwise known as Jesus, was not sent here to teach the people to build magnificent churches and temples amidst the cold, wretched huts and the dismal hovels. Of course, this is ancient language from his time. He came to make the human heart a temple and the soul an altar and the mind a priest. That was his version of what Jesus's walk on earth was as a great prophet, or whoever you believe him to be. My interpretation of what he said was that the carpenter's purpose was not to focus on the material when humanity is suffering, but that which is not evidenced by the naked eye, to teach how to protect and discipline the heart, keep sacred communications with the highest one, and build the spiritual self while continually seeking and being sober-minded. So having that in mind, let us meditate. Thank you.
I invite you now into a time of meditation. Place your feet upon the floor if you are comfortable doing so. Close your eyes if you wish, and breathe. Let your breath fall into a natural rhythm. Reflect upon the bridges and channels of love present or needed in your life, or upon whatever is precious in your heart.
Got carried away with the meditation, didn't I? So the song I'm singing today, originally, I'm going to go ahead and sing I Won't Complain. It's a song within the Christian community, actually, in the African American gospel tradition that is sung a lot. So, I've had some good days. I've had some hills to climb. I've had some weary days and some lonely nights. But when I look around and I think things over, all of my good days outweigh my bad days, and I won't complain. Sometimes the clouds hang low, I can hardly see the road. I ask the question, Lord, why so much pain? But God's been so good to me. He's been so very, very good to me. More than this whole world could ever see. He's been so good to me. He dried all of my tears away. He turned my midnights into day. And I It's a beautiful morning, is it not? Good morning, UU Church. I would like to first give honor to Pastor Warsnop, who's not here today, and thanks to Maureen and Ruth for Maureen and Xina for all your communications with me in preparation for today. And I want to express my appreciation to the congregation for allowing me to stand before you once again. This morning, I'll be delivering this message from a perspective of a Christian born and raised in the Baptist faith while being respectful of the moral humanism and leaning into the practice of cultural Christianity. My desire is always to be open and kind while remaining true to my roots. If you have ears to hear, I hope that we could walk together this morning to explore the idea of what it means to love, while exploring more what some may call an enemy. There was a young man whose mother was unpredictable, erratic, and abusive. As a child, he was beaten almost every day. His biological father wasn't around. She told him she loved him. But her love was a roller coaster of life and death experiences. She was an addict of both alcohol and prescription drugs who made her child responsible for her instead of the other way around. He cooked, he cleaned, shopped for groceries, and even picked up her prescriptions. If only he had had access to a loving parent as a child or counseling, but instead of his mother demonstrating love to him, he demonstrated love to her. In the Tanakh, it speaks of a wonderful counselor named Emmanuel who was delivering an inspirational word on a mountain. He began his dissertation by describing what it means to live lives of favor and honor, which means just to be blessed. He gave explicit instructions on how to live righteously or moral lives, and at the end focused on why it was important to simply show love, not just to show love, but to demonstrate it. And I know the UU Church does a lot of things in the community that demonstrates in action love. The passage we're focusing on in the Tanakh, but it also the Tanakh doesn't have chapters like the same way that the Bible does. But if you want to reference the Bible, it would be book of Matthew, chapter 5, verses 43 through 45. But we're only going to focus on one of those verses. It says, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of the Creator or the Father in heaven." So some might read this passage and think that's literally saying love your neighbor and hate your enemy. However, it's not. It's saying you have heard or been taught to hate your enemy, but that is not the only way. The author says, love your enemy and earnestly ask and petition on behalf of those who have caused you pain and do not deserve your help. Let me emphasize, helping does not mean putting yourself in harm's way. The focus today is specifically on the part of the passage that says, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. In short, it's just saying have warmth and empathy for your enemies in spite of themselves, and actively petition for those who have used you maybe or had it out for you. But that doesn't mean that you go to them and tell them, hey, I'm praying for you. It doesn't mean you go into their house or have to put yourself again in harm's way. This is not performative. Does anybody know anyone who needs prayer or food who has burned every single bridge? Who bites your hand when you try to feed them? As you know, the sermon title is Love Your Enemy. So back to the story of the young man and his mother. Was his mother the enemy? Some of you may be familiar with stories like this one. He grew up feeling unworthy. He definitely did not know he was enough, as the children's story mentioned. He had a chaotic and traumatic upbringing. He was beaten on a regular basis. I totally respect the feelings of everyone, and I have a great respect, and it's very disheartening and terrible tragedy what's happening across the world, not only in Ukraine, but in Sudan in a lot of countries around the world have been in conflicts and wars for over 20 years. And for those people, my heart goes out to them. Again, I will repeat, loving your enemy doesn't mean you're putting yourself in your harm's way. It doesn't mean that people don't need to suffer consequences. It doesn't mean that people aren't subject to the laws of this country or the UN. It doesn't mean that they should not suffer consequences for the terrible crimes that they have committed. Let me be clear about that. I understand that at these difficult times, that this is a difficult and hard message. Please stay with me. After a quick Google search, I found these definitions of enemy. A person who is actively opposed or hostile to someone or something. A hostile nation or its armed forces or citizens, especially in a time of war, against others. A thing that harms or weakens something else. To act in a way contrary to one's own interests. One that is antagonistic to another. One seeking to injure, overthrow, or confound an opponent. Something or someone harmful or deadly. Now, throughout the history even of the United States of America, we have suffered. There's a lot of different suffering and different oppressions and different wars that have happened amongst us. But as an African American, my ancestors themselves, if they had not learned to be forgiving, to live among people who had previously enslaved them and who constantly have different injustices against them, then we would not be able to exist in any form of peace and love. Now, in times of wars, the Bible talks in Ecclesiastes about seasons. There is a season for a war and a time for peace. There is a season for love and a time for taking a pause and listening and taking care of others. But we have to understand that these messages still ring true, regardless, even if we are in a time of war. Based upon these definitions, does the mother, do you think, fits the definition or the bill of an enemy? I'll leave that up to you to decide. An enemy hates, an enemy divides, an enemy steals, an enemy destroys. But we're talking about the spiritual side of forgiveness. We're not saying forgive somebody that's actively trying to attack you and go up to them and allow them to attack you. No, 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 no. What we're saying is spiritually, what can we do as people who commit to the higher power? What does the enemy destroy? The enemy destroys hope. A lot of the things going on in the country right now destroys people's hope. It destroys joy, as we saw today. It destroys peace. It destroys your purpose sometimes, because if you're hopeless, you lose your way. It destroys your destiny and your drive. Those things fuels your mission for what you are purposed as individuals to do. Enemies essentially are dream killers. Also, have you ever known somebody who just never apologizes, who hurts you, insults you, lies to you, keeps you up at night, lives rent-free in your head, sets you up to fail, despitefully uses you, campaigns for your demise, stabs you in the back, threatens your livelihood, steals what does not belong to them, bullies, taunts, and picks incessantly, comes after your house, your home, and your job, tap dances on the graves of good people, and leaves a path of destruction wherever they go? Does that sound familiar to anyone? The most prolific attacks are the attacks on our psyche that use emotional propaganda that's likened unto psychological warfare, using our people, hate campaigns, and sometimes even using municipalities and leaders of the free world to create chaos for the purposes of political coups. Today, there are wars and rumors of wars. There are policies at the state and federal level that remove checks and balances, eliminate voter provisions, gut infrastructure, illegally reduce personnel, state funding, regulatory agencies, threaten to cut off water from Colorado to California, take over Gaza and the Panama Canal, turn the stock market upside down, desegregate, alienate, deport, withdraw from the UN, pilfer the Pentagon, commit felonies, publicly offer to purchase votes in Wisconsin, bully the media, cut Medicaid, halt cancer research, blame victims, undermine U.S. international partnerships, humiliate world leaders, impose tariff wars, send legal immigrants to Salvadorian prisons, justify zero tolerance policies separating children from their families, disrespecting the rich history of immigration in this country, fixing education by eliminating it, manipulation of the U.S. Treasury, turning federal law enforcement agencies inside out, starting a trade war with both Canada and Mexico at the same time, dwindling government resources by shifting what has been termed waste and abuse from social programs to the top wealthiest people by changing tax laws, destroying the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, defunding farmers, and deleting history of Americans who loved their country and fought for it. Please do not say it can't get any worse, because it can. Don't sit down and be a spectator and just wait to see what else is going to happen. In the near future, this experiment directly affects me and my family. I may not be allowed to be in the same room with you in the future. Many of us live under the threat of real fear, loss of autonomy, loss of civil rights, loss of equity, and worst of all, loss of our freedoms. But as difficult as it is to say, is the federal administration really my enemy? You may ask, how can we love something or someone like that? How can I love an enemy whose very lives are antithetical to my core values? Before I answer those questions, first I want to make it clear that love, again, is not a submission to abuse, does not mean being friends with someone who seeks to harm you. It's not an effort to sacrifice one's life to someone else's madness. It doesn't mean not standing up for someone who needs protection. It does not mean you should remain friends with someone toxic. It doesn't mean that you forget the horrible things someone has done to you and allow them to get away with it even if you forgive them. That's not what this message is about. Love is this context, is a demonstration of kindness, patience, charity, hope, and a purpose, because love is a verb. It is doing. And this beautiful morning, we will be covering how to live lives of favor and honor, live righteous lives, identifying the enemy, and being aware of that. This thing is not moving. So let's start out. What does it look like to live lives of favor and honor, being blessed? Well, the good book says, be humble, carry one another's burdens, be slow to anger, seek wisdom and understanding, be able to show kindness when it is not warranted, keep good thoughts and not meditating on terrible revenge plots. Know it is okay if people talk about you because of who and what you stand for, or if they tear down everything you believe in. Because the good book also says, revenge is mine, thus saith the Lord. And believe you me, God's revenge can be worse than any revenge than we could even imagine. So, again, I have to keep repeating it because of what I heard here in the congregation today. I am totally sensitive to the fact that those in Ukraine need somebody to stand up for them. And this message is not about saying that they don't deserve to have a victory or that they don't deserve to have protection. What I do want to say is that all is never lost. In remembering that even though they are attempting to destroy everything you have worked for, be encouraged, because in spite of their threats and destruction and coming after your family and killing, there is a higher power and a higher purpose beyond our current events and circumstances. These expectations are hard, right? And I say this understanding that I've lost my own youngest boy. I totally understand that those that killed him, I don't mince any words, they deserve to be in prison. And they're in prison today because I worked with an attorney to fight to put them there. And just like anyone else who commits war crimes or crimes against the UN what the agreement was, that they deserve to be held accountable as well. So you might ask, I'm not supposed to get mad. I was ready. I knew somebody might be upset about the message. Am I not supposed to get mad? No. Just be slow to anger. Good anger is productive and can overcome. I can't march and cry out, no justice, no peace. Yes, you can. Just do so respectfully. I can't do everything I can to stop the tragedies I see happening every day, dang it. Yes, do fight, but do so with wisdom and patience. I can't tell someone I took offense to the terrible things they did to me. Yes, you can. Go to them with the intent to seek reconciliation with those who are wanting to reconcile, okay? Not those who don't want to reconcile. Those who have made it clear that if you walk across their path, they're going to cut you down. Not them. I cannot be enraged about the horrible consequences of actions caused. Yes, productive rage that unifies and has everyone come together and fight on behalf against those who are the enemy. Because let me not mince words, there are enemies. Revenge and grudge can take your focus off your mission to live. But going back to the spiritual fight, the spiritual enemy, because we could talk about physical enemies all day and fighting. That's another message. We're talking about spiritual enemies. Because the good book says a fight is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and rulers of darkness, okay? Revenge and grudges take your focus off the mission to live in favor and honor unto God. If you focus on the negative instead of the positive, it can lead to a path of trouble. Like you go down this path and you just can't get off that path. And whatever your purpose and mission is, it might be this way, but you can't stay focused on it because you're like, So when my son passed, everybody asked, so are you going to run for council again? Are you still going to be a minister? Are you still going to sing? I'm not going to lie. When my son was killed, the joy and the love and it just like kind of dissipated and everything turned gray. But I continued to walk faithfully in what I had always done. Because one of the things a therapist says is don't change what you're doing in the midst of a tragedy, because you can fall off a deep end of a cliff into depression and may not even ever be able to recover. So I just kept doing what I already knew how to do, what I was already taught to do. And I was able to get through until I got to the light at the end of the tunnel that said, my purpose still remains. Yes, my son passed, and I miss him dearly, and I wish I could have died instead of him. But I didn't. So if I'm here and I'm still breathing, I'm on the other side of the earth. I'm on the top side, not the bottom side. What is it I should be doing? There are so many crime shows on TV today, and most of them are about murders. In this passage, it covers all the behaviors that can lead you into danger or indifference. And sometimes indifference can be even worse. Verses 21 to 26. Let's go back to what it says. It says, don't be angry enough to kill, or you will be judged. Again, when we're not in the season of war. Again, going back to Ecclesiastes, there's a time for war, there's a time for peace. Right now, we're not really in this time for peace, right? Don't practice cursing one another out. Don't give donations and gifts with an arrogant heart and haughty heart. I mean, I had to give an impact statement when my son's killer was sentenced. And I had strong words for him. But I also knew that in the state of Florida where my son died, that they had capital punishment. But my values is not capital punishment. And so although my son lost his life and he'll never be married and have children and get to become old and gray like me, I still didn't seek capital punishment for the death of my son, because that was my value, and that value did not change. Don't give donations and gifts with an arrogant heart and haughty heart. Don't intentionally drag out legal proceedings. Don't live by the creed, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I mean, as a side note, what happens when a country runs out of empathy? The Statue of Liberty represents the philosophy, bring your tired and your poor. Did you know that before U.S. was formed, Europe sent its criminals here? And that is off topic. Don't be impatient with those who do not have higher awareness. Obviously, a lot of these people that commit crimes and hurt others don't have a higher awareness, but we do. Don't cast people away who don't understand the universe the way you do. Don't walk away from someone who lacks love or joy or peace, because maybe they will. So all these things are popping in my head, I'm sorry. But when I was campaigning before I won the seat to elected office, we had to go walk the community, and I walked the business community. And I ran across this business member who I said, hey, I want to know how you feel. I want to let you know about my economic development ideas and policies that I would like to implement, and want to know what you think. And he's like, well, I think that those homeless people on the street, you need to get rid of them, and they don't deserve to live. And I said, you don't mean that, sir. He's like, yes, you do. And his wife came up like, shh, stop, honey, don't say that. And I was like, I understand that you are worried and concerned that the people who are in front of your business might run off potential customers. But you cannot say that a human being doesn't deserve to live. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you may have a child one day, and that child may end up on the street. And that man who you wished dead may be the one that saves your daughter. You never know what's happening in the future, or what one individual person's purpose is. Maybe that entire purpose for that one individual was to save your daughter. But because you wished him dead and he's gone away, now your daughter has no one. So think about and he got upset with that, and I just left. But I could not agree. I could not kowtow to that concept, of that idea. Some of these other don'ts are more about life things. Don't maliciously cause harm to your spouse with the intent to ruin their lives. If you're in a divorce, be fair. Don't make promises you can't keep. That's pretty simple. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I know someone will say, why should we even care at all? When you stand up against a tide of tyranny without wavering, when insulted, lied, or when you're witnessing injustice, you will not, or we will not, be the first or last persecuted for standing up for what is right, according to the principles of justice and love. But when you stand up for those things, there is a reward. We must find a way to shout for what is right, to stand for decency, and be encouraged by our principles and our values of fairness and equality. We have the ability to demonstrate the power of God through our actions and be a beacon of hope for those who are lost. And in the process, maybe one will come into a higher understanding of the teachings of a higher power, of the universe, of whatever your perspective is, and mine is Christ. This is the point of it all. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Do you pray? Can you fight? Are you ready to feed the multitude? Are you prepared with resources and tools to survive? Are you prepared to live a life for love and justice, like me, and for God? Emmanuel gave explicit instructions on how to live righteous lives. And in the good book, Matthew, chapter 5, verses 13 through 15. Living righteous moral lives means believing each and every individual has value, and fighting for the justification of all, being other-centered and not self-centered, living for an eternal purpose of divine universal order. Each of you were wonderfully designed for a specific reason and purpose. You have value beyond your physical appearance. You were meant to share your unique gifts regardless of your education, your class, your status, your race, your orientation. You were not meant to keep your gift a secret or covered or be ashamed of what you believe or your values. For me, I'm not supposed to be ashamed of the gospel of Christ or even allow someone to block your shine or your ministry because you were born with the purpose. And as the good book says, or the children's book that we read, you are enough. Somehow that abused, neglected, emotionally exhausted young man persevered and found his purpose. He became a practical psychologist who was driven to help others out of suffering. He became an inspiration to 100 million people, 100 million people worldwide, working in 15 countries and working 18 to 20-hour days to help people live healthy, happy, and independently. He is a world-renowned speaker who motivates people beyond their trauma and abuse. He calls himself a performance coach, and he is on a campaign to feed the hungry around the world. But before all of his success, he made a decision. He could have easily become his own worst enemy. But instead, he chose to teach others. So, if he could have become his own worst enemy, I could have become my own worst enemy, and all of you can become your own worst enemy. But I'll ask the question again, is the enemy really others or the government, or is it individuals? The gentleman that I was speaking of, or that young man that I was talking about, some of you may recognize the story, I don't know, but his name is Tony Robbins. He said that America's top two needs are significance and certainty. He said that chronic comparisons or obsessive control is what hijacks the minds of most Americans. And he's saying this having been to 15 countries and seeing what most people's issues are. He said people get exhausted upholding their manufactured identities. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Like the masks or things that we put up, or just any number of things that are what the good book calls vain imaginations, all the things that we can imagine in our mind that's going wrong or that's bad or that we're not good enough and that we're not worthy, and or the recordings that play in our head from childhood, you'll never be nothing, those things. I don't want to say it, but I used to have in my head things that I know my mother had said when we were a child when she was angry, and I had to learn how to unrecord them, unlearn them, that's right. You heard the Lauryn Hill when she made her album, it was called The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So I was miseducated, right? So I had to re-educate myself on who am I and what is my worth and value in this world. So I just don't know why I have so much problems with this. Okay, so we're at the end here. This is near the conclusion. So, Ayaan Hirsi Ali, born in Somalia, escaped to the Netherlands and got involved in politics, renounced her Islamic past, which she said was violent and controlling, and embraced new atheism. She was integral to that movement with Richard Dawkins as her mentor and friend, and they're still friends. She lived 10 years with depression and contemplated suicide, but instead self-medicated. And about a year ago, she became a born-again Christian at the prompting of her therapist, who suggested she was suffering from what was called spiritual bankruptcy. She was in a personal crisis, living with depression, anxiety, self-loathing, suicidal, self-medicating. So at her therapist's prompting, she prayed at the bottom, at her lowest, full of depression, with nothing left to lose and only a sense of something to gain. Even Jim Carrey said in an interview that his therapist told him that everyone should see the world depression, depression as a need for deep rest and the need to get away from the world and the need to get away from the avatar or the character that we have created. So we don't have to worry about eternal damnation because guess what? We damn ourselves. Have you heard that phrase, we are our own worst enemy? Some religions consider the education of self above all others as idolatry, and others consider the elevation of self as the highest form of enlightenment. Philosophy itself was a theoretical field whose establishment began with the desire to prove the existence of God. Of course, very slowly over the years, the mission became the opposite. As a matter of fact, it became the intellectual goldmine for those who suggested that fact, knowledge, science, and creation trumps relationship, experience, wisdom, the sense of faith, and the Creator. I believe it was Immanuel Kant who came up with the categorical imperative, which established that whatever we do should be measured against this litmus test, and that what we do should come from a sense of duty and reason. However, some of you may know that this is not how philosophy began. It started out as everyone should. That's not how his philosophy, not philosophy as a whole, but Immanuel Kant's philosophy, it did not start out that way. It started out as everyone should be free to do as they will. And very quickly he realized that would not work. I think it took like 4 years or something like that. In the end, he acknowledged universal moral law as a necessity for human communities. His experiment exposed the weakness of individual expression, that it cannot exist without rules, and we know that today because of what we see around the world. Well, in my worldview, God is the rule maker. For others, it is themselves or the universe or nature. And Nietzsche, on the other hand, believes in hedonic nihilism. Those are fancy words to simply say that life has been deemed meaningless and your entire life should be in the pursuit of pleasure, not to be confused with being glad, happy, joyful, or content. When a man is hopeless, all manner of mayhem is possible. When someone has nothing to lose, they lose any compassion, any love, and any empathy. This is a chronic state of depression and is what, it's hard to pronounce, Ion experienced. She had a debate with Mr. Dawkins, and they even brought up the whole concept that in the world today, there's more shootings and killings and crimes, and they're just increasing, and the more that value is taken out of the school system, the more that morality is taken out, and the more the things are getting out of control. But Mr. Dawkins' argument was he values truth above all else. In the eyes of God, and I don't want to offend anybody, but in the eyes of God, that's disobedience. However, if you make your own rules, then in your own eyes, you are right where you want to be. And I'll leave it at that. Even Aristotle studied God's creation. He understood the necessity of ethics, virtue, and character. And that begs the question, where does ethics, virtue, and character come from? That's a whole nother conversation. That's off topic. These things are absolute. There is no consensus on what consciousness is, but some needs cannot be answered by reason and thinking. When I say needs, human needs alone. Spirituality rests in another plane. There's different planes of reason, consciousness, and offers rest, unification, togetherness, and a higher power. So even though the universe owes us nothing, we humans in this universe, we have a conscious. So what are we going to do with it? Were we given the conscious for no other reason but to have it? That traumatized young boy, in becoming a man, Tony Robbins, chose not to wear the cloak of victimhood. He proclaimed to anyone who would listen that his mother's abuse made him the man he became. And no matter how controversial that is, that's his statement, that's his belief. I don't have an opinion about it. Some people have challenged him on it. But he says he thanks her for it. He took his story of tragedy and heartbreak and turned it into a mission, a life purpose. But what of his tormentor? Is there encouragement, love, and forgiveness for her too? Why have any warmth and compassion for your enemies or actively petition for them after they've despised you, hurt you, used you? Seriously consider what this passage is proposing, because it's a difficult truth. If you're tired, you get access to a place of eternal rest. If you're restless, you will find peace. I'm not saying that other people don't already have peace. You may already have it. But for those who don't, if you are in a toxic environment, at work, at home, you will be shown kindness and a way out. If you lack a spiritual relationship, you will inherit an eternal promise from the Creator. For those who have been isolated, you will not feel alone. For those who feel they are missing something, you will not feel empty. For those seeking more, you will understand faith and know the higher power. For those who want to be significant, you will be considered great in the eyes of God. And for those who lack a mother or a father, you will become a child in the kingdom. More than that, the Creator paints the sky every morning in the east and every afternoon in the west the same way for everyone. They see the same beautiful combination of gorgeous colors as you. They are able to witness the glory of creation even when they have done nothing to deserve it. In Ventura, we have the ocean and the mountains and the weather. Of course, when water falls from the sky, we all get wet. We all can splash around in the ocean. We all can drink, whether you've been wretched or not. We have all fallen short of perfection, and even when we have caused others pain, inflicted harm, bullied, caused strife, were envious, begrudgingly so, or done these things to yourself, we are all worthy of what the Creator has to offer. So the test is to stretch ourselves beyond our comfort zones and beyond what would make sense to those who rely solely upon reason for those things that reside in the spiritual realm. I don't have an answer for the wars happening. I don't have an answer for that. To practice radical acts of kindness for those who need it, otherwise known as love. In my faith, God is love. Love beyond logic, love unreasonably, love with meaning. God is saying, if I have forgiven you, loved you, saw you hurt others, why can't you do the same for others? It does not mean you don't stand for justice or require consequences. What reward is there in only loving those who you already know love you back, and those who do everything you tell them to do already? What great measure of grace and mercy is there in only saying hello to those who say hello back? Or to you first? Or what good is it to think like you or only agree with you? Why only love those who think or agree with you or have the same values? When evil rulers rule, it is not the end of the world, but it is a lot of suffering. Suffering that I pray for, that I ache about, that I wonder when will end. But we have been here before, centuries ago, millennia ago, today. The only difference is that the heroes written about in history books must be you now. Can you have genuine love for someone who doesn't deserve it? Can you stand up when it's time to stand up for what is right in the face of opposition and persecution? Because standing up for what is right will invite prosecution. It's just automatically going to happen. And I'm sure you guys have witnessed that in your political involvement within the city and the county. The point is, we are not to stand in judgment of others or even ourselves, because that is God's and God's alone. And I just want to lean in on love your enemy, especially if it's you. Because Matthew does say, love others as you love yourself. So if God didn't want you to love yourself, he wouldn't have told you to love others as you love yourself. And if you hated yourself, he wouldn't be telling you to hate others as you hated yourself. So if you loved yourself really lowly, he's not going to want you to love others really lowly. He wants you to love them highly. So you must love yourself highly in order to do so. And that is my message. Thank you. Dear most gracious and heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to be here in front of the UU Church congregation, that you allowed me the privilege to deliver a message to your people, the UU Church, and all their perspectives, and all their hard work, and all that they do in the community. I ask that you lift them up, Lord. Give them staying power. Give them joy when there's no reason to be joyful. Give them peace if they are restless. Give them power where they are weak. I ask, Lord, that you encamp around them angels. I ask that you lift them up, embrace them with your unchanging hands and arms, Lord. Give them the power. In the name of my Jesus, but in their universe, from their perspective, Lord, lift them up. I pray. Thank you.
Well, I invite you all to rise in body or in spirit as you're able, as we all sing together number 318, We Would Be One. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are, of what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which finds our hearts and points us to our way. Is one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
Please join with me in reading the words to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
All of you here in the sanctuary today are invited after the service for coffee, tea, and conversation in our community room, Berg Hall. Also, all visitors and guests are enthusiastically invited to stop by our popular connecting table right through these double doors for a chat. We hope you will join us at 11:30 for the Red Cross presentation, and remember that you are welcome to place an offering in the box at the rear of the sanctuary before you leave.
I have been long-winded, so I will not keep you long. Now unto him who is able to keep you from stumbling and to present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy, to God, who alone is wise, be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and forever. Amen, amen, and everyone go home and be blessed, and I love you. Thank you for allowing me to be before you today.